Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Adam Manson, and I am the Chief Data Officer here at BVR. Our free webinar today is titled Unlocking the Power of Granular Data, Enhancing Business Valuations with Bizminer. Before we begin, I'd like to remind you that your attendance today is eligible for 1 CPE credit. To receive the credit, you must answer 3 poll questions that will appear during this webinar, and you must complete and submit a brief survey within 5 business days. A link to the survey is included with your login email. It's also available on the event page for the program. At the conclusion of today's program, you will automatically be directed to that survey. If you are registered as an additional listener, you must be on your own device so that you can respond to the questions and qualify for CPE. If during the webinar you have any trouble with the audio streaming, please try refreshing your screen to fix that issue. We will take all questions for our presenter using the Q&A chat function on the side of your screen. Again, to receive your CE credit for today's webinar, you must answer 3 questions that will appear at random times during this presentation. Now, I would like to introduce today's speaker. Galen Pugh is Bizminer's Senior Account Executive. He has been with Bizminer since 2013. Galen has spent his time at Bizminer building out their sales process, fostering partner relationships, and overseeing customer success initiatives. He has extensive experience working with CPAs, CVAs, bankers, business brokers, nonprofit organizations, and academic libraries. And with that, I'll turn this over to you, Galen. Have a great presentation.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate the introduction, and I appreciate all of you being here today to learn more about Bizminer. So today we're going to focus on who Bizminer is, kind of what we do, what makes us different. A big part of today's presentation is going to be a live demonstration, so you can see live how Bizminer works, how you create and access reports, and some of the data that's available to you. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the common use cases and practical applications when it comes to Bizminer and business valuation professionals. So with that being said, let's jump into today's presentation. So who is Bizminer? Bizminer really is a data analytics firm. We specialize in 2 main types of data: industry financial data and industry market data. And what we're known for is really granularity and local information. So drilling down to very specific industry segments, local market areas, and getting down into detailed data points within those industries. We're used by a variety of business professionals, both CPAs, valuation professionals, but also college and university libraries, small business development centers, and small business owners themselves. So what do we do? As I said, we're a data analytics firm, and really our data is categorized in 3 different ways. So we have industry research profiles, analysis reports, and business prospect lists. And so what that means is, the industry research profiles is really the quickest and easiest way to get direct access to the data that we're developing. And they come in 3 different versions. There's the financial profiles, which are really our flagship product, and they're the most used by valuation professionals. That's what's going to give you access to our in-depth benchmarks for about 5,000 plus industries. We also have market profiles. Those are going to provide you with local market trends like local competitors, industry market volume, startups and failure rates, demographic information. And they're available from the US all the way down to the zip code level, again, for over 5,000 industries. And then we also have company profiles. They give you insight into company specific details like what are their estimated sales, how many employees do they have, who are some of those key employees. A little bit different from the research profiles are what we call analysis reports. What makes them different is that they're building on the research profiles, but they require inputs. So you would actually input a client's data into the analysis reports. It would compare them to some of the industry and local market trends that we're developing and show how they're performing against those industry peers. So when it comes to analysis reports, we have a few different versions. We have the financial report, which really builds off the financial profile, but it integrates those inputs and benchmarks that business against the local industry peer group. We also have market reports. You can see how the business compares to its competitive local market, such as, what's its market share, where does it rank in terms of sales against its local competitors. We have a valuation report that will develop an estimated value for the business. And a company report is really kind of a combination of those first three, but truncated and summarized into a very fast and easy SWOT analysis. Finally, we have business prospect lists. So you're able to build a targeted list of companies by industry, area, employment count, revenue, and several other parameters. So really, when it comes to what we do, even though we're a data analytics firm, it's broken down into these different products. A few of them that are all about research and getting the data that you need. Others that are about analysis, so including inputs and comparing those inputs to the industry and market data, and then the prospect lists. And so why Bizminer? What makes us different? What makes us unique compared to some of the other industry research resources that are out there? There's really four main things. The first is our industry coverage. We've spent years developing an extended NAICS code system. So typically a NAICS code would go up to 6 digits. We've started to add decimal points under the end of that so that we can break them down into more specific subsegments. By doing that, we are able to categorize up to 9,000 industries. And what that really does is it ensures that users can find relevant peer groups, regardless of the niche or the market segment that they're in. And you'll get a better understanding of all this when we get into the live demonstration. Next, what we're known for is local data. So rather than just providing users with national or regional trends, we drill down into states, metros, and even down to counties and zip codes. And by covering that local market, Bizminer helps you to better understand regional differences and identify peer groups that are in and operating under similar market conditions. Because as we all know, like a restaurant operating in New York City, their financials and their market conditions are going to be a lot different than, let's say, a business in that same industry, but in Missouri or Kansas or somewhere in the South. Next, we're known for really high quality and reliable data. We've been around for over 20 years now. We've built a reputation on granular and reliable data. So we source our raw data from trusted public and private statistical databases. As I said, we've been around for about 20 years, and we're used by CPAs, banks, universities. We're accepted by US tax court. So it's very reliable and well-vetted information that you're getting. And finally, what we're known for is really customizable reports. So rather than the pre-made industry reports that you get from some other resources, nothing in Bizminer is pre-made. So you actually go through a process of setting parameters and developing reports based on your specific needs. So that way you're getting relevant insights that's tailored to the individual business needs. And what that does, the industry coverage, the local information, it really allows you to get more accurate and reliable data and provide you with better strategic decision making. So when it comes to practical applications, Bizminer, I've been with the company for about 11 years now. For a lot of that, I've worked closely with BVR and CVAs, valuation professionals. These are the most common ways that Bizminer is being used. So determination of discount rates, assessing risk and market position, investor perception, developing valuation multiples, which we use the DealStats database to do, and adjustment of financial statements, also known as normalization. And really, that all comes down to benchmarking performance. So comparing a business and their financials to their industry peer group and analyzing the financial health and performance of that business. So next, what I want to do is actually give you a live demonstration, because it's great to talk about who we are and what we do and some of the things that make us different. But I think what's most important, especially with this presentation, is actually showing you Bizminer. How does it work? What data is available? How might it be able to help you out with the work that you're doing? The best way to do that is to give you a live demonstration. Before I jump into that, I do want to just take 1 second, see if we have any questions coming in. Yep, so I have a question that says, some data providers show industry short-term and long-term debt averages. Does Bizminer plan on doing this? That is something that we're looking into adding. Not only that, but looking into adding quartile ranges. So right now we provide industry averages, but providing quartile ranges so that you can kind of see more of a middle and high performing, low performing averages when it comes to the financials and the ratios that we're providing. So let me jump over to the Bizminer database. All right, so this is the platform. And before I jump into giving you kind of a detailed walkthrough of the resource, I want to point out the products that are available and kind of relate it back to what I talked about earlier. So as you can see up on the screen right now, these are the different products that you can access through the Bizminer platform. Up top are those research profiles that I talked about. So the industry financial profile, industry market profile, and the company profile. Again, these are how you get access to the proprietary Bizminer data that we're developing. I think most of you are interested in the industry financial profile. That's really our flagship product, and it's the one that's most used by valuation professionals. So most of today's demo is going to be focused on that specific product, but we will touch on some of these other ones as well. Down below in purple, these are the analysis reports. So they require inputs, and they're going to use those inputs and compare that business to the industry performance and see how that business is performing compared to its industry peers. Show where it's doing well, where it's not doing so well. And each one of these has a different focus. For example, the financial report is really all about benchmarking, whereas the valuation report is providing you with an estimated value. So with that being said, let's actually jump into creating one of these so you can see exactly how it works, the functionality. Then we'll download a profile and take a closer look at exactly what data is available. So let's start off with the industry financial profile. All you have to do is click on Start Researching. And from here, you actually go through a process of setting the parameters to create a custom profile based on your specific needs. So this is something that I mentioned early in the presentation. One of the things we're known for is that we do not publish pre-made reports. So it's not like some of the other resources where once or twice a year, we release a new version or updated version of these industry profiles that you can just go and download a version of. None of these reports, or I should say profiles, are actually pre-made yet. So you go through, set parameters, the database is going to go out, find firms that fall within those parameters and develop the profile based off those selections. So let's go ahead and go through and make these selections and pull up one of these financial profiles. So the first selection is always industry. As I mentioned, Bizminer has developed a proprietary extended NAICS code system, which allows you to drill down into very niche industries. I want to first show you an example by typing in 7722511. This is the 6-digit code for restaurants, or I should say full service restaurants. So typically when you're doing industry research, you would only have the option for maybe full service restaurants or limited service, maybe a couple of other ones in there. But you can see with Bizminer what we do by extending these NAICS codes with decimal points and breaking it down. So you can get down into Chinese restaurants, Italian restaurants, mobile food trucks, steakhouses, coffee shops, brew pubs. So what this allows you to do is create an industry peer group that really closely relates to your client and the business that you're working with. That way you're getting more accurate benchmarks during your valuation work. And what I did is I typed in one of those NAICS codes, but you can also do what's called a drill down, which starts at the sector level and then drills down within that. And you can search by keyword. So I'm going to type in remodel because one of the handouts that was provided to you today for this presentation was a sample industry financial profile that was provided to you in both PDF and CSV format. And so I'm going to recreate that. That way, what we're looking at is also the handout that you received. So we're going to go with residential remodelers. And you can even see with this one how you can drill down into kitchen and bath remodeling, closet design and remodeling. But we'll go with the overall residential remodelers. Next, you can select the market area. So as you may recall, one of the things we're known for is allowing you to drill down into local markets. So with this drop down, you can select US, state, and if you select a state, it will show counties within that state. And that's also something I want to point out. We're known for our granularity, but it's really up to you. So you could do like residential remodelers in, let's say, Springfield, Missouri, and get very granular with your selections, or you could do the construction industry in the US. So you can say as broad or get as specific as you need to be. It's all just depends on the specific needs of you and or the client that you're working with. I believe the sample that was provided to you was for Missouri. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And you can see once I select that state, some of the metros that come up within it. Next, we have sales class, which is also known as a revenue range. We have 4 aggregate ones. So there's industry-wide. It's going to be the entire industry, small, medium, or large. And if you click on small, medium, or large, you do get a further breakdown within that. I believe the sample that was provided to you was for 1 to 2.5 million. So let's go ahead and select that. And you can see when I make selections, the database is going through calculations. So this is like a loading screen. It's going out and making sure we're really figuring out how many firms are in that industry, market area, and sales class that were selected. So it shows you how many firms are analyzed and the year-end average revenue of those firms. I do want to point out that the structure and time series, they are optional in terms of selecting them. With structure, there's a second option called sole proprietorship. So that's only going to analyze sole proprietorships within that industry. And time series allows you to choose a 3 or a 5-year profile. I do want to also point out very quickly that we have what's called legacy years. So this standard 5-year report currently goes back to 2018, but you do have the option of adding legacy years. Now, depending on the industry that you select, they can go all the way back to 2001. However, they are only available at the US level. So if I go back here and choose all US, we can see this option down here, add legacy years. So, super important with business valuations. Sometimes you need to do a valuation for a certain point in time. If that time is prior to 2018, that year is not going to be included in our standard 5-year report, and you'd want to add these legacy years onto the profile. So if you need these, in this particular case, it's 2007 through 2017, you would click that checkbox. Now, when we access this, the standard 5-year profile would download, and those legacy years would be in a separate profile that you can find down here under My Data and Profiles. We can take a closer look at that if anybody needs to or wants to, but for now, let's go back, change our selection back to Missouri, and access this sample profile. All right, let's click Access Now. And while this downloads, it will take a minute to download because, as I said, it's not pre-made. So it's going through and making the calculations. As this downloads, I'm going to jump back, see if we have any questions coming in. It doesn't look like any questions so far. All right, let's hop back to the financial profile. Looks like it is downloaded. So over on the left are the different sections of the report. The very first section just kind of talks about Bizminer, our methodology, quality control. There's a glossary for all the data points. And there is also insight into the data sources. So as I mentioned earlier, we get information from both public and private statistical sources. It's actually about 15 different sources that we're gathering raw data from before we kind of clean it, analyze it, and develop these profiles from it. The next area talks about the industry peer group. So how many firms are analyzed, what industry was selected, and shows the hierarchy that it goes through. And it also gives some definitions and talks about the ratio categories that'll be analyzed. Now, the main aspect of this report is going to be the financials and the ratios that we provide. So what you're getting with this is an industry average profit and loss statement. So as you can see right now, it's 2018 through 2023 Q2. We're about to update it to year end 2023. So every summer we do an update to the year end of the prior year. So it'd be 2023. And this winter we'll update it to Q2 2024. And this is a trailing 12 months. So all of these are 12 months. As you can see, very, very detailed. So we're known for the granularity of our data. There's about 24 line items here. So you're not just getting, 8 to 10 standard P&L line items. You're getting a good breakdown of things like officers' comp, salary and wages, rent, EBITDA, operating income, and one that is always important to valuation professionals, discretionary owner earnings. Now, this information will come in percentage and dollars. There's also some charts to visually show some of the data. And there's a little bit of narrative over on the right, which will point out some of the trends that we might be picking up on. Next, we have the industry average balance sheet. This has 16 line items. Comes in percentage and dollars. As well as some charts. And the sources and uses of funds table, which is similar to a cash flow. The next section of this report is the financial ratios. We developed 36 industry ratios that are separated out into 4 different categories. So we have ratios for cash flow solvency, profitability, efficiency, and debt risk. And the final section is valuation multiples. As I mentioned earlier, these valuation multiples are developed from the Deal Stats database. What we've done is developed sales and earnings multiples for 4 different sales groups. So basically small, medium, large businesses, and an industry-wide group. We've also developed the quartile ranges. So for example, with the sales multiple, you can get the Q1, median Q3, or in other words, the low, medium, and high multiple. So this is the online version of the report, or I should say the in-app version of the report. But you can also export this information in two different formats. The first is a PDF file. So let me get that generated. And I'm going to switch to this tab. All right, so this is the financial profile in the PDF format. So same information, just laid out into a nicely formatted PDF file that you can provide to clients or integrate into a valuation report. And probably even more importantly, we have the CSV download. So we'll get this downloaded and pulled up. This is the most used by our valuation professionals because, as I'm sure all of you know, valuation professionals usually have their own model and workflow that they use for their business valuation work. So being able to export this information into a CSV file really allows them to easily integrate it into whatever valuation model and workflow they already have going on. I will also point out, so I don't think I can share the CSV because I'm only sharing specific tabs within Chrome, but that's one of the handouts that you've received. So feel free to pull up that CSV version of the sample report that you have there as a handout. But the other thing I want to point out before we move on to a couple of the other products that we have is that the financial profile keeps a consistent format and provides consistent metrics across industry segments. What I mean by that is currently we're looking at a report for residential remodelers in Missouri with sales between 1 to 2.5 million. But if you were to pull a financial profile for, let's say, restaurants in Florida with sales between 500,000 and a million, it's still going to provide you with these same metrics. So consistent profit and loss, balance sheet, the same ratios. That way you can easily integrate it into a valuation model that you have. And the same with the CSV export. So it keeps a consistent format. You know that the current ratio is always going to be in the same row and the same column that it always is. And that way you can really start to automate some of this work. All right, let's jump back and let's see if we have any questions come in before I move away from this particular industry financial profile. So we have a question that says, in industry financial profiles, can you select several states or only one? Excuse me for 1 second. So currently you can only select one state. So the options is to select the US, a state, or a metro area within that state. We are currently looking into really two different possibilities. One is to allow the user to select multiple states, and that would be really a more customizable option. So for example, for me, I'm in Philadelphia. Maybe I want to select Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey to create a specific area. That's one of the options we're considering. The other option is just to kind of predefine some regions like New England, Southeast, Midwest, and create certain regions throughout the US to choose from. So currently, you do only have the option to select one state, but we are looking to implement some other options going forward. Really, right now, the holdup is download time. So because these aren't pre-made, every time you make a selection, it has to go out find what find what firms fall within parameters and develop these reports on the fly. Multiple states and regions and the way that those will be calculated really have long download times. So figuring out how to speed that up or to make the selection and how to provide it to the user in just a more efficient way. I have a comment here, really not a question. I've used the legacy feature in the past and it was very helpful. Glad to hear that. So, that's a good point. So why don't I show that very quickly? Or I'll just show you where you can find it. So if I would have chosen to add those legacy years in, if you go back to your account under My Data and Profiles, you will see that the standard report that you got, but also that legacy year report in your financial profiles. This is going to take a minute to download because I have hundreds, if not thousands, of profiles in my account. It should pop up here any second. In the meantime, let me see if the other question. Your year-to-year trends, each year does not consist of the same exact companies, does it? And if not, how relevant are the trends? You're right. So if we go back, or if you reference the sample profile that you have, each year does, I shouldn't say each year consists of a different group of firms analyzed, but it can vary from year to year. So in the report that we looked at, I think it was like 137, 140, 142, 138. It kind of changed each year how many firms were analyzed. Now, the kind of core set of those firms is probably the same, we can assume. If we're looking at residential remodelers in Missouri with sales between 1 and 2.5 million, it's going to be mostly the same firms from year to year. Now, from one year to the next, we might have a couple of new firms or some firms that have dropped out, maybe because they went out of business or they moved up to a different sales class, a different revenue range. So the number of firms analyzed will vary from year to year, but typically, the core set of firms is relatively the same. So you can look at the trends, and they are helpful to look at just because, it is a very specific set of parameters and a specific set of firms. So if you see cost of sales, it's consistently been going up from year to year, that's a trend that you should be aware of. If you see operating expenses going down, that's definitely a trend that you can be aware of and is relevant. So that's definitely a good question. But the trends are important and relative, even though the number of firms may vary a little bit from year to year. And then if there is no data for a size group or geographical area, what does your data do? Great question as well. So I'm going to pause on that question for just 1 second, come back to it. So I'm under the stored profiles. So these are profiles that I've accessed in the past. Excuse me. And I believe, so you can see here, industry financial profile archive. So this is one that I've accessed in the past. So you'll have an industry financial profile, and then you'll have the archive version. Actually, it'll be right above it. So for this one, for example, I pulled a financial profile for plumbing and HVAC contractors. I decided to include the legacy years, and those downloaded in a separate profile, which is right above it. So you'd want to come here and download this separately, and it would show all those legacy years. All right, so getting back to that other question, if there's no data for a certain size group or geographical area, what does it do? Yep. So the way the database functions is, as you're going through this selection process, it does its best. Let me type in a code 238220. It does its best to show the corresponding market areas and sales classes that are available. So, if I choose plumbing and HVAC contractor, it's going to show me options for the market area that have enough firms in that industry available. So, if I did a more specific industry, let's say automobile manufacturers, you would probably come to this market area and see some of these states grayed out. Like, maybe there's no automobile manufacturers in Florida or, Maine. And so those would not be options. They'd be grayed out. You would not be able to select them. But there also is the case where you could get to select an industry, market area, and sales class, and you'll get a pop-up saying that there's just not enough firms available. After our database has went through and looked for the data, analyzed what firms can be analyzed, you might get a pop-up that says, no data available. So let me try to do an example. So like heat pumps. And then let's do, so you can already see some of these states are grayed out. Let's go to a really small state. I want to go and try to find one that's not available and show you what happens. So we did the industry heat pumps in Delaware. Let's select a sales class. And see if we can get it to the point where we get the pop-up saying, yep, there we go. So sorry, we do not have enough data available for this selection. Please try again. So basically what this is saying is, and you can click here to learn more, it kind of tells you about some of the limitations in terms of, why you might get this pop-up. But really what this is saying is there's not enough firms to analyze. When you look at the industry of heat pumps in Delaware of sales to 2.5 to 5 million, there's just not enough data. There's not enough firms. If it drops below, I think the cutoff point is 8 or less firms, you'll get this notification. So really what you have to do is, change one of these selections, grow to a broader industry or a broader market area, go up to the US, or go to a little bit broader of an industry. So you have to change your parameters until you get a selection of parameters that have enough firms. Great question again. Do you provide a list of firms analyzed? And so next question, do you provide a list of firms analyzed each year for consistent comparative purposes? We do not. So we do not publish the names of the firms analyzed. A lot of these are privately held companies. So when it comes to this financial profile, no company names are provided. But as I said earlier, because you're able to get very specific with the parameters, for example, residential remodelers in Missouri with sales between 2.5 to 5 million, those parameters are so specific that the firms analyzed from year to year are going to be pretty consistent as well. And then next one, do the valuation multiples come from deal stats? They do. So the underlying data comes from deal stats. I will say that it's not just republished from deal stats. Bizminer has an algorithm set up where you selected residential remodelers in Missouri. Our database is kind of going through the transactional records from deal stats and developing the valuation multiples based on the methodology and algorithm that we've put together. So if you pull multiples from deal stats for residential remodelers, they might not match exactly with what you would get from Bizminer because of the way that we're selecting them and calculating them. But the underlying data is 100% from deal stats. Yep, great question. All right, I believe all those questions are currently answered. Really happy that a lot of questions came in, especially when it relates to this industry financial profile, because as I said, I think this is most useful to the valuation professionals and it's definitely the most used. So I'm glad we kind of spent time, dug into some of the details and got some really good questions that came through. At this point, let's jump back to the home page of Bizminer. I'm just going to spend a little bit of time showing you some of the other products that are available. We'll spend another, maybe 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes going through some of these other products briefly, and then we'll leave some time at the end for some Q&A. So the next one I want to show you is the industry market profile. So you click on Start Researching, and it's a very similar process, only this time just 2 selections. Choose your industry. I'm going to do the same, residential remodelers, and then you can choose a market area. This one, you can get more specific. It can be US, states, cities, which don't include just major metros, counties, and even zip codes. So let's go down to Missouri. We'll get Missouri selected. And we'll give it a second here. It's going to do some calculations and show us some of the local areas within that state that we can select from. All right, so as you can see, we have cities over here. We have counties. And we have zip codes over to the right. You can choose 1 or up to 5 zip codes, but you do have to select just a single county or city. So why don't we select, I'm going to do Springfield. Let's select Springfield. It's going to calculate how many firms. All right, we have 149 operations. Let's go ahead and click Access now. Now this market profile, just like with the financial, it's going to take a minute to download. It's going through and making all the calculations and compiling the profile. As you can see, the sections on the left, they're all grayed out right now, as well as the different versions of the profile. They're all loading, and we'll get a little pop-up notification once it's ready. And similar to the financial profile, you can go through while this is loading, read a little bit about our methodology, quality control, and things of that nature. While this loads, let me check the questions. Doesn't look like we have any other questions coming in. All right, data loaded, so we're ready to look through. I won't go through all these different sections. There's a ton of data in this particular profile, but I want to kind of hit some of the key metrics that we have in here, and then quickly show you some of those other products that we have available. So one of the things you're able to see here is competitors. So unlike the financial profile, which does not show the names of any individual companies, this one does. We're not getting into the financials and the financial details of any particular company, but it does show you the name and location of some of the competitors within the industry and market area that you selected. So in this case, these are residential remodelers in the Springfield metro area of Missouri. So for example, you can look around here, click on the drop pin. We have DLS handyman service. We have bath remodel, Springfield. And it works both ways. So you have a list, it'll show up to 250 local competitors. And if you click on the name, you'll get the street address, estimated value, estimated sales. And if we have a website for them, we'll list it out here. So a good way to kind of get a sense of who some of those local competitors are and where they're located. You can also look at this data in a table. What we also have is market volume. So what's the total sales of this industry over the past few years? And so you can see if it's been growing in terms of its market volume. Market share, small business and startup share. average and median sales of businesses over the past few years. Employment numbers, total employment, average number of employment. Like I said, I won't go through all this. Productivity, I think, is a great section. This is looking at sales per employee data, average annual wage, and rent per employee. And this is one of several sections that shows both national and local averages. So you can see, what's the national average for sales per employee for this industry, and what's the local average. That's all I'm going to show for this particular product, because I want to jump back, getting towards the end of our time here. Excuse me. The company profile, I'm not going to go into. I don't think it's particularly useful for valuation professionals, but you can search for and select a particular company in the database, and it'll give you some some details on the company. What industry are they in? Where are they located? How many employees do they have? So some general info. I will say, if you're already working with a company, you won't find any information out on the company that you don't already know. So it's more for like a prospecting tool, interested in learning more about business that you're not working with. So that's what's included in that. And then the analysis reports. I just want to quickly talk about how these analysis reports work. So if you want to use any single one of these analysis reports, you first have to go through the process of inputting your client's financials. So you would come to the data, what we call the My Data page. These are all inputs that I've uploaded to my account for, like, ABC Nursing Homes, Nashland Roofing, ABC Plumbing, so different financials for different companies. What you would have to do is download our CSV template. It looks pretty similar to like a standard tax return. So it would be an Excel file with some basic profit and loss, balance sheet line items, and you're able to enter in up to 5 years of data. So you just fill out that template, save it as a CSV file, and then just upload it to your account. Once those financials are in your Bizminer account, you can pretty easily create any one of these analysis reports. It's basically the same process as what we've seen with the financial profile and market profile, except there's one additional step. So if we wanted to create a financial report, we click on Start Analysis, and the very first step will be, what inputs do you want to use? And so we could say, okay, let's use 2000 Q3 test inputs. So if we click that Add button, now you can see it's the same process. So choose the industry, market area, sales class. So what you're doing is, hey, let's create the ideal industry peer group to then compare this business to. And so, if this was a residential remodeler business, just go through that same process. Okay, I want to compare them to other remodel business. I want to make sure that we're focusing on Missouri because that's where my client is, and the market conditions that they're facing is going to be much different than maybe businesses at the national level or on the East Coast and, like, let's say Philadelphia or New York. Select the sales class. And it'll go ahead and develop the firms and create the benchmarks. And then we can go ahead and click Access Now. And it's going to develop this financial report for us. Now, this financial report would include the same industry data as the financial profile that we first looked at and that you have as a handout. So it's going to still have that industry average profit and loss, the industry average balance sheet, the industry ratios for the residential remodelers. But the main focus of this report is now going to be, well, how does this business compare to that industry peer group? So it's going to give summary scores. It's going to show variance from industry averages. For example, might say, this business's cost of sales is 10% above the industry average. So just a little bit different of a focus. It's more focused on how this business is performing compared to the industry. All right, we are right at the end of our time. And I do want to leave a little bit of time for some Q&A. So in summary, Bizminer is really a data analytics firm focused on industry financial data and local market trends. What we're really known for, drilling down to those specific industry segments, local market areas, providing a lot of reliable and granular data within those profiles and reports. And what that really means is more accurate information for you and better strategic business decisions. Because what you're doing is you're getting data for the ideal industry peer group. So instead of just construction industry at the U.S., getting down to residential remodelers in Missouri, that ideal industry peer group is going to give you more accurate data and allow you to make better decisions and better provide advisory services and valuations to your clients. So hopefully this presentation and especially the live demonstration gives you a better understanding of exactly what's available through Bizminer, how it all works, and what makes us a little bit different from some of the other resources that are out there. So with that being said, I will pause, open this up for a Q&A, see if we have any questions to address. And if not, we'll flip it back to Adam.
All right, well, thank you, Galen. I don't think we have any questions, so I think I'll go ahead and wrap it up unless you have any final comments you want to share.
Nope, that's it. Sounds good.
All right, well, thank you. On behalf of BVR, I want to thank Galen for an excellent presentation, and I want to thank all of our listeners for attending. To learn more, please visit bbresources.com/Bizminer. As a reminder, to receive CE credit, you must complete and submit a brief survey on this webinar. A link to the survey is provided in your login email and on the reading page for today's webinar. Your feedback is key to providing the best possible programs for you, so please provide us with any suggestions you may have. If you choose to fill out the survey now, your browser will automatically direct you to the CE credit page when I finish speaking, so don't disconnect. The survey will be active for 5 days and must be completed before we can process certificates. After 5 business days, we will process your CE and send your certificates via email. If you have any questions related to the content or format of this webinar, please email our training manager at training@bvresources.com. And coming up for more BVR webinars, we have on July 25th, an industry analysis webinar focused on transportation and logistics valuation with Samantha Albert. And on August 6th, we have Seth Weber and Casey Carlson presenting Exit Planning, Helping Business Owners Increase Value and Liquidity. You can find additional offerings on our calendar page as well under live events. Thank you all for listening. Have a great rest of your day. We are going to end this webinar now, so please go ahead